to Denver and back round trip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, when you got to go down there, Denver March powwow. Yeah, that's right.
Well, at this stage of the game, if she's sick, because she got tested positive, so
Oh, man.
they might just change their plans.
Yeah.
Well, she's waiting for the
There he is. All right.
Who's that young guy? He didn't show up, huh?
No, he's there. He was just there and he took off again. There he is. One ugly. That should do a look good. Me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo, wata, baby, agi, dabi, ya, bino, yo, yo, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ya, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ha, ya, hey, hey, ya, yo, hey, ha, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo. Horseback Community College, Ugiepino, yo, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo, wata, pebi, hagik, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ya, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ha, ya, hey, ya, yo, hey, ya, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya. Hey, hi, hey, bro, you made it. Hey, Horseback Community College, Ugiepino, yo, yo, me too, gashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo, wata, pebi, hagik, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo, hey, yo. Hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ya, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ha, ya, hey, ya, yo, hey, ya, hey, ha, yo, hey, yo, hey, yo, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ha, ya, hey, ya, hey, yo, hey, yo. Horseback Community. What they say about you? I've got me too. Kashi, dagush, kashka, yogi, piano, yo, yo. Wata, pebi, hagik, tabi, ihachi, ya, bino, hey, yo.
Homie talk up here. Oh,
There you go.
hello. Good to see everybody today. Again, I'm Elijah Hopkins, streaming at you live from Fort Peck Community College. We have Dekshi Tommy in the house. We have Dekshi Earl. Then there's another relative, Hey Stodoashni, but it's good to see him. Dayan Wachiake. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I believe we have a few students on the Zoom call, and then to whoever's joining us out there in Facebook world, thank you for joining us on our podcast. I want to start off with a prayer in a good way. Dexter Earl, if your teeth are in there in a good way and they won't fall out on us, if you could share a prayer with us in a good way, appreciate that.
My teeth is all full of brownies right now. Have a snack. My sugar gets low. You gotta put some sugar in here.
Okay,
Takashila wakant. Now petu wakao yakam kile. Yo tela wana ake. Upila chiching tilechia wahiha. Ila unicha bihuni na hapiata. Ayang washtelo hata. Wahihe. Takashila tateto paka. Takukuk roche kya. Unicha pya het kya. Uyewo yakticha anahu tanamushim kya pye. Takashila wakant. Wana Nawaza kakihuni ki wana Jonah la aicha. Na achtiyo wakajo git khaplige. Na achtiena Tokeske shunkte hecha hel. Ubna hel paus begel. Na achtiena ubna. Lilo ota hena achtie. Hena denkelena. Ubna hel tu blokskiske hena wazen gep kishni tuk te gashi mutu isolation cash. Na achtie lila wopila hakaki ekhaki washte. Grandfather, we thank you for the opportunity of this day to work with our children. Hena wakajaki. Isha hena Koki prab is niet job. So hena achtie he itego okachpa hishkamki hena the masks. Hena wima rabna. To hanle usloka kokete. So nihincha na achtie ashe. Oble onspekja hechop cha kokja kabna. Dokchai cheli yanktit kashila. Isha una kokja cha Kiksua pona toha inuka mishtohani ekta pantas wopila yukchahna ochike akaga kashe onichakta. Tolomus, be patient, say your prayers at the day and in the morning and evening, and be thankful for what you got. Things will work out. So at Hokashila hena takuku hena yuha kicha gabna wana Chala Mukaya Chalena Achie. What kinds of Trecha Genum spell Yapche? Elila Wopit Hanka. Imaya Chahet and Kashila. Ilana Polo. I thank you for the opportunity that was given to me to work with children. So Takuka slowly up the Hena Muspel Kopi. We can teach our children, our younger ones, patience, and getting them equipped and ready for the future. So I had Hokashla Hena Wochika, Hena Hoka Iglukcha. Hokashila Hena Achile Hokano Kit Hapi Hena Ija Wochika, Nichabna. Alshichak Ashna Achti Washteste Wiawa Shate Washtena Ijalat. I said she blessed the relatives of a friend who's being laid to rest. A good friend of ours. Say, oh, yeah. Akuka hena. Akozak pag into Ake which Asha Cog and Tuaki Kopidi Apke went up. She's with her friends and relatives. We hope that they all and we all get to enjoy our lives as best as we can before we reach that plateau. So so we give thanks for each day that we are continue working with our children. So I know Kixia, Yakab Nahe, Ija Wochikia, Yaha, Yonkiabna, Ushik, Wuchika, Gaga. And I could talk Hena, Soleopsnik Ash, Dohatuk Ija Hena, Wuchika, Nichap China, Wuchiket Haganach Ona, Okiat, Ashila. We ask to hear our prayers of our people who are having a hard time on the streets in our own towns. And they also need our help, our prayers. So we ask for that your guidance, your blessings as we discuss pertinent information for our people and learning how to share. So at Kukashila, Tuakena Kule, Oyatok Ota, Taktoke, Oakaka, Echa, Ija Shichawaka, Kena, Ija Ushek Chena, Ukiayat Kukashila. So Emu Kukashila, Leam Petuaka, Choyako, Yuhahe Hoye, and a Wochika Ekake. So at Kukashila Ushuka, Ushuka, oh, Mitake was.
Pidamia, Dexter, beautiful prayer. A few announcements here before we get started. We try to incentivize participation for those of you that show some Facebook, social media love to our podcast here. We encourage participation by giving us a like, a share, a comment, just smashing that love button. We want to show some appreciation to some individuals that did that on our last podcast on Facebook. There was 2 individuals. Every week we have a couple items up for grabs, and we have a Kindle Fire tablet. And the winner of the Kindle Fire tablet is Mr. Kyle Iron Man. Winner chicken dinner.
All right.
To our relative Kyle.
Super dinner.
Super dinner. And then we also have a Cho Buffalo Chasers jacket. It's like you letter in being Indian when you get this jacket. And the individual that is the winner of this Buffalo Chasers jacket is Miss Sherry Ross. Winner chicken dinner.
A Shumpa dinner. Shumpa dinner.
Oh, that's true. Sherry's one of our hardcore viewers. I think she's on our webinar here, and she's also on the social media. So congratulations to both of you. You can retrieve these items by stopping by the Student Services War Eagle Vision Building, or if you're not in the local area, just give us a call, 406-6370, and give us your name and your mailing address, and we'll hook you up. We'll send it on out. So with that, Dexy Tommy, Dexy Earl, looks like Dr. Drew is with us today. We're going to do some programming. Oh, but I'll turn over the reins over to you, Dexy Tommy. What you got for us?
Oh, hecha to ela wopila chicha pelo dai chano toshka. Oh, amitaki epiambe to kile michante tawa glake na hana pe chuza pelo. Che. Wana ohia PKC ya chiwo. Oh, check ya chante wa cheyu. But again, okay, here we go again. We're here on this Thursday. I got my little brother right here. Eat badger claw gabado. That's what they call him. But but he's Shahia Wichasha from Mistawasis. He lives in Saskatoon. All that yellow beadwork that I wear when I dance powwow, he's the one that beaded that whole regalia. But
And so he's come here, he come to visit. It's been 2 years since I seen him face to face. And so, holy crap, he was just crying and Pakli, oh, correct. But no, he's one of our relatives from the north. He's from Saskatoon. He's come to visit, just making his rounds down here. He was down in Billings, went over to Fort Belknap, seen John, our other little brother, and visited with Ed, our other brother. And so he's making his rounds, and he just here. He's going to be part of the podcast today. But I know that we're going to talk about protocol today, and one of the things we think we brought everybody along to where they can start understanding the diversity that exists there. You know, our way of life is based on protocol. Yeah, because we're spiritual people, not necessarily religious, and that protocol is a part of that diversity and that uniqueness that is based on natural law that should be an enhancement and enrichment for the sake of the growth of our children. And so with that, when you get into the protocol, that's where you address that uniqueness based on our language, the manner in which we do things. And so kind of appropriate to have our Shahia relative here from Canada. He's a Cree, but he carries the Indian name of Badger Cloth. How do you say your name? Khoga Shage. Yeah, not Hoga. Khoga Shage. Badger Cloth. And he danced in the Wiwayang Wachi. Yeah, he danced in the Wiwayang Wachi and all that. But again, he's still Cree, and he carries on his Cree way of life, but at the same time, really understands the diversity in that respect because he lives that way. In a good way. So I just want to welcome my little brother Waylon Badger here from Mistawasis, but he lives in Saskatoon. So, but with all that being said, you know, the protocol for us is very important. It helps us to understand the diversity that is there. I know the 7 pipeways that was brought to us by Pete Sawi, and that's keeping of the spirit, the purification ceremony, the Hamblechia, the Hunka ceremony, the ladies preparing for womanhood ceremony, and then the throwing the ball ceremony. Those there should be 7 there that I mentioned. Well, the first one is keeping of the spirit, eh? And Chia, we talked about that the other day. We're going to go do a little explanation on that on April 8th and 9th over in Fort Totten or somewhere over that way. But one of the ladies thought that it would be appropriate for her family to understand how and why we do those things. In our language, we call it Nagi Gluhapi, eh? Like you keep in that spirit. But in that whole way, the diversity that we talk about, you know, the Shahia, the Cree people, they're different than us. Even within our own societies, the protocols are a little different, but not too far away from those 7 ceremonies that I mentioned: the keeping of the spirit, the Inipi, the Hamblecha, the Wiwayang Wachipi, the Hunka, and the preparing for the womanhood, and of course throwing the ball. So, you know, those things from family to family, they could just have a little bit of a diversity involved in them, but we maintain the sense of that those particular protocols, because there's not rules and regulations that guide us, but it's a matter of how we interpret them as a family or an individual, and then we apply them to make them work for us, because it's the intent of trying to help others based on our Lakota way of life or Nakona way of life, and understanding the importance of those that choose to live a traditional life. You know, not one person is everything. You don't find one person being all the Iwipi men, all the Medicine Lodge men, all the Inipi men, all the, you know, it's usually delegated throughout the within the clan or the society or the family as to one person. That's why I always try to share, help people understand. Usually in one family, there's one kind of designated, if you will, not by us, not by humans, but by the spiritual influence, that usually takes on our cultural value system and will carry it for the whole family. And that's the same thing with that Nagigluhapi. Usually one will take on that responsibility, and if it's a lady, they'll cut their hair and they take a little piece of the hair of the one that has gone to the other side, and they'll carry that and they'll pray for old people and children and kind of keep themselves back in representation of that the naturalness of that death. It's not there to be afraid of, but it's there to understand and respect. And so we always try to do those things based on this protocol that we're involved in, and we try to establish that through the 7 ceremonies that was left to us by Pate Samwi. And then, understanding the importance of that. Prior to the pipe, before the Pate Samwi came, we had that Tunkashi, and a lot of people don't understand the importance of that, because again, that was also in a natural law way with all these things, ceremonies we did in a good way, but we use the rocks. Tunkashi is in reference to the stones, and because they're so old and prehistoric, even some would say even before snow they were here, which is true. But that's how far back our way of thought or our belief system goes, right from the beginning, since that little tiny blood thing that was asking that buffalo for help, and he helped them, that little enzyme that was fed by the buffalo, then we evolved into what we are today. But there's all these different stories, and a lot of people would refer to them as myths. They're not myths. Those are things that apply to us as it relates to our stories of origin, that helps us understand the importance of this higher power, the spiritual energy that guides us and directs us, but doesn't dictate to us. And so in that, there's diversity based on our way of life that is different than the others. And I always, currently, I've been trying to help my daughter understand a lot of these things that happen to us that we kind of get offended to are as a result of cultural ineptness, not just from white people, but also from Indians. A lot of Indians have been assimilated to where they have an inability to really understand us. So there's a cultural ineptness there. So from that, we need to provide, like we're doing now, an ability for them to learn based on this opportunity to take advantage of providing cultural awareness. And as a result of that, then at that time, once they make the choice, they can become culturally responsive. So cultural ineptness, cultural awareness evolves into cultural responsiveness. And you see, and then we can share that respect. So what we're doing, gentlemen, is I think it's really appropriate for us to utilize this informational technology in a manner in which it should be, as it relates to like the COVID. Remember that silver lining in that dark cloud? Well, I think this affords us an opportunity to take on some of this virtuality. I don't even know if that's a word, but it sounded good.
Cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool. But we're trying to utilize that in a manner in which we could take full effect of it to kind of convey our message, to provide that cultural awareness so that they can become culturally responsive. So, and that's kind of what it's all about. And I know that Chie has some very important information as it relates to becoming culturally aware so that we can be cultural responsive in respects to where this is all founded on. It's founded from protocol, our cultural protocol. And again, we depend on other people that live like this, that exercise this way of life, and almost on a daily basis to understand the importance of that protocol. So I know that Chie and myself, we have a thing we're going to go help out some folks with over in Fort Totten or Fargo area in April to help them understand the importance of that. Because again, our people need to understand, don't be afraid that you don't know about being Indian, because not everybody is, we don't tell our story, we share it. And not everybody has been afforded an opportunity to have been shared with based on their trying to keep up with the fast times of today as a contemporary Indian, paying the bills, getting gas, paying your lights, and paying for that new house and that new car. They get caught up in that. And sometimes they don't have an opportunity to just kick back and become culturally aware so they can become culturally responsive. Chia, does that make sense to you? You know, those 7 ceremonies that were given to us by the Pate Sawi, and I mentioned them, the keeping of the spirit, the purification ceremony, the 4-day feast, 4-day fast, the Sundance, the Hunka, the making of the woman, and then of course throwing the ball. Those are the 7 that I learned. But the protocol that follows us helps us to discipline ourselves in a good way, provide an opportunity to actually deal with these what do they call them, virtues on an everyday basis. As if you live as a Dakota, Nakota, or Lakota person, you exercise those virtues to develop and build your character. Mitakuyepi, brehichiapo. Remember how they say that? So Chia, I'll turn it over to you. You talk about that mitakuyepi, brehichiapo, and what that consists of in respects to utilizing the protocol in our way of life. Okay, vashtelo.
You know, when you go back to that terminology, it triggers a lot of memories, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that comes along with that is that when you're traumatized, an individual goes through so much, but you don't realize what's happening to you.
Yeah.
When I lost my oldest son, you know, the old habits start creeping up on me. Like it would be much easier to stop by the liquor store and get something to ease my pain.
Yeah.
Or look for something like to smoke up to kind of just try to put it in perspective and all this kind of stuff. Those things start coming at you, you know? And so having to struggle through that and knowing and learn the tools through treatment. Now, keep in mind, I went to treatment 4 times.
Yep.
Each time I was sent, it was my missus that sent me. And she would, she said, you have to find a way in which you can deal with your addictions, because if you can't do that, I don't want you around the kids. And that hit home. So while at the University of North Dakota, busy studying, going to school, teaching, one day I was approached and I had they notified me, the dean called me over to his office, notified me that what had happened to my oldest boy. And it was so much guilt and so much, it was to a point where I really didn't know what to do with myself. And so you have to reach out. You got to find somebody that's going to help you. And being in a place like that, I mean, you know, everybody's pretty much strangers, you know, in a university campus, unless you got relatives there, or even then you're all too busy to take on issues, you know. And so kind of went into kind of like a dormancy in my life. And I was sitting around, and the first thing I asked was, I called my missus. She said, you just stay there, don't go anywhere, do nothing. She said, just stay home.
Yeah.
But at that time, I still felt, I said, I need to talk to somebody. And I walked up to the Merrifield Hall because I had the means to get in there, and so I just wanted to be someplace alone. And here, Mary was in her office, and she noticed right away that something was wrong. We were my secretary for a long time, the years that I was there. And then for some reason, it seemed like the appropriate time. So I took the time to tell her, I says, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And I said, I got to find that balance, that harmony that I had. It's shocking to be told that I lost my oldest son. And she came over and sat down beside me. She said, you know, Earl, she said, as human beings, we have to learn to accept the realities of life and go on and doing the things that can best represent their lives. And she started advising me of things like that. So I started getting away from buying that booze and getting away from looking for that smoke, and she kept, what do they call it, confidant.
Oh,
And so there was many times that even after all the services were over for my boy and all that stuff, I'd stop in her, because during the year in school, you still have those things lingering over here because of guilt. I should have did this, I should have did that. When I had the chance, I should have done it, this kind of things. And so it got to the point where my mistress said, "You need to go home." She said, "You're scaring the kids." I said, "Scaring the kids? I'm not scaring the kids." She said, "You're scaring the kids. You need to go home and deal with this. Go back to your relatives, your auntie, your friends down there. Go back to you and find your balance. Go back. You trying to kick me out? You don't love me anymore?"
first thing. Yeah.
I got jumped into the Lizard, my old car, put all my things in it, and kind of watching. So, "Well, if you don't want me around here, I'll go."
Yeah.
And so I left, and had a lot of time to think about what was going on. Every liquor store I went by, I had to kind of think about it and keep going, And so when I got home, back to my aunt's place who raised me, she said, "I was wondering when you're going to get here." And I was kind of shocked. She said, "You see that trailer house over there?" She said, "That's mine." She said, "You just need to clean it up and you can live there and stay there." She said, "And don't worry," she said, "about nothing." She said, "Your
Oh.
friends and relatives will treat you in a manner in which it will help you." And sure enough, the meals came and I didn't have to go anywhere. And the only thing that I had was visitations from Lala Joa, Clifford, Jimmy. They all came in, sang for me and gave me information. And there was so much that came at me in that way that woke up in the morning, the prayers, the tithes, and I made it through that year. But there was so much that I had learned in that short period of time, but I didn't know what was going to be going on in the future, as far as work. And so Lala Joe came one day and started talking to me about what he called it, Shankugideshka.
Yeah.
And he started telling me about the coming of the pipe, because that's what he did. He made pipes. So he'd come over and work on a pipe, and we'd sit around and visit and enjoy each other's company. And La Colia, La Colia. He chose in his last year's he didn't want to speak English.
Yeah.
So even though he knew how, he chose to speak Lakota all the time. So I don't know. It was fortunate for me. And so Tehinchala Sanwi, that's the original name given to the white calf pipe woman. Tehinchala. They refers to the whole herd buffalo, and then Hinchala refers to the hair, and then the san is the old way of saying white. So Tehinchala Sanwi is the original way in which that name was pronounced. And you can make references to different writings that confirm that. Yeah, so in that process, I started becoming familiar. What he talked to me about was what directions meant this, what directions meant this, what colors meant this. And so that became the awakening that I had with the balance that I made today. When I look at a medicine wheel, I think about the balance that I need every day to keep on that road. Shankulu, Yuta or Duta, and the influences that come from the negative side. It's a daily struggle, and you never know what's coming at you. So anyway, so finding that balance, I began to say, well, I have interests in other things. And so as the year went by, and we came and president of the college came, Dave, and said, it's time for you to come out. And I looked at him, I said, I'm okay, I'm doing all right. I said, I like living here. No, Earl, he said, it's time for you to come out. He said, it's time for you, he said, to pray with those ties and take care of those uyas. And it's time for you to join the human race. Yeah?
Oh,
But I got so used to it by that time, everything I was doing in that little trailer house. I couldn't go to the basketball games, powwows, bingos, whatever it is, movies, whatever. No, keeping the spirit.
oh,
And so in that process, that period in there, I didn't realize that in time, and believe me, I never thought that would ever happen. And I was bestowed the honor of helping Mary and her family, and for them to me, help them doing the wiping of the tears for them. And so I was very honored, and I feel very, very proud of my relatives, what I feel like. And I had no, how would you call it? Fear of praying or all that kind of stuff, because as hard and difficult was as losing a son, I also gained wisdom. I also gained these things that I could help people with. But I also learned that you don't go around knocking doors and say, I can do this for you.
yeah.
You want this done, I can do this for you. I was taught never to do that. If it's significant and important, they will come to you. He says, so stay at the drum. Don't ever leave that drum. So all those years, I stayed at that drum, and whatever isn't significant, important, came to the drum.
Mhm.
Translations, history, and all that came. I didn't have to leave that drum. So anyway, so as that progressed and as that's going on, there's so many symbolism that is associated with all the natural colors. The blue, shkashkan, the green, preji, preji, zisha, or the preji, zitro, green.
Yeah.
And then the old way of saying grapes is, how the grapes grow around a tree, the vine circles around it, and the grapes come out there, and then it turns purple.
Yeah.
That's how they describe that color. It's a medicine, right? And then the ska, or the wahihe, the snow, the purity of life, and the sapa, the road that is going to try to distract you. All that needs to be taught. And so the opportunity that comes along with that stems from being influenced by older people or friends that were associated to that. And so I was asked one time, when's the first time you saw a medicine wheel, what they call a medicine wheel? I said, Lala Joe. I said, flying by.
Yeah.
I said, I have a recording of him talking about that. He told me, he said, he told me all that stuff.
Yeah.
He said, someday that's going to come to you. He said, so unispecte, he said, how you perform it and how you do it. And now so remember those things.
I'll remember them. Yeah.
So years way had passed, and now it's come to that part of our lives, reaching elderly. Why we are now are those, how would you say it, chala and unuch chalas that are going to be teaching our grandkids.
Yeah.
So the process that acquires, even in trauma, is there. It helped me find a means and way in which to exist. And after I came out of that keeping the tears, keeping the Wanagi Oish aspect. The whole world just happened so fast. The teaching, traveling, onward, recordings, doing this and that. I can sit back and think about those things now and say, how come you don't sing at the Sundance anymore? I said, I sang there 20 years straight. I said, I think I put in my time. I think it's young people now. You guys have to take over. I mean, that was sun up to sundown.
Yeah.
Powwows, honor songs. I said, I've been through all that. I said, even though I don't have a strong voice anymore, it comforts in my mind and my heart. I says, whenever I was asked, depended on, I did my best.
Mhm. Oh,
So that's a harmonious and very peaceful mindset that I have that I can thoroughly enjoy. And it brings me back with my takojas, brings me back to my grandchildren taking care of me now.
yeah, yeah.
But like they say, I'm still getting to be a grouchy old man once in a while too. So
Getting to
that's
be
just
you
part of it.
are.
One guy. Look like one of those guys,
In the
Remember-
balcony. And
the grouchy old men, and oh yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, so I still have these little, how would you call it, quirks that happened amongst my kids. Yesterday, I had to get drained with a paracentesis.
Yeah.
So I had to go to Bismarck and they had to drain my stomach, which is getting better. Now it's only 17
Oh.
pounds. Before it was
Oh.
27, 24, 27. Now it's cutting better. So anyway, I had to leave the school, and today when I was in between classes, I stepped out and these two little boys confronted me. Mr. Bullock, where were you? You left us, they said.
Ugh.
I was wondering, so what are these boys talking about? I said, what do you mean? He said, you sent us to hell.
What happened?
I said, what? What do you mean? He said, her, and they pointed at one of the other teachers. She's like a grandma. She really chews them out when they're gone.
Yeah, your substitute.
We had to go to her. I got a kick out of that. It's one of those
That's a good one.
things that just, yeah. You
You know,
sent us to
Chie,
hell.
Chie, it's important for us to understand that there's nothing wrong with being culturally inept, eh? But it's
Yeah.
a responsibility, especially if you live on the reservation, to try to become a little bit more culturally aware, because that's an indication of respect, eh? And a lot of that cultural ineptness, it kind of opens you up to start believing in that superstition that's been incorporated into our culture. There's no superstition in our way of life. And for the superstition that's in there, it serves a purpose. It protects that center, Giabado, from all these looky-loos, all those onlookers and stuff, nosy ones. But the ones in the center know the truth, and they share. Like my grandpa Joe, flying by, the one you were talking about. That's my blood grandfather. He would come up here and he'd always talk La Coliapi all the time. And we didn't understand what he was saying. And then my dad had to confront him and say, Joe, Uncle Joe, he said, I know you can talk English. You were in the army. He said, oh, yeah. But true, he never wanted to speak English. He always talked in the language. And he told me, he said, you don't understand. He said, but you will understand me someday. And which I do now. But, even in that's superstition. There's people that believe, and this is a reality. As a result of that lack of cultural awareness, they think we're of the devil. That's not ours. We don't have that. That's theirs. That's how they think. But that's representation of that diversity of this Chongleshka that you talk about, this Chankug Greshka. That's a part. They're all a part of it, and then they refer to us based on superstition that's what we do. And like we're voodoo or stuff like that. And we tease about it and we don't realize people are taking us serious, eh? But amongst us, we tease because we have a basic understanding of that truth that's in the center. Chokata iotaka wichashapinaha wo wichake obomani, you know? And so in that, they're the ones that carry that. Then if we want to know, understand it, then we go to them. And that like Grandpa Joe, how he come to you in that way. He knew he needed you, but you're a relative. And so people don't understand when your relationship consists of stuff like that. Like they don't realize a grandpa and a grandma without ceremony can give an Indian name, but they think it all involves a pipe and all this ceremonial protocol. No, a grandpa and a grandma can just give one of their grandchildren a name and say, that's your name. They don't understand that. They think they got to pay all this money to get an Indian name. And that's not the case at all. That's an indication that when the grandpa and the grandma afford that, that's what they think of. Based on what they know of you, they name you, right? So that's a part of our protocol. And all these other things, it disciplines us on an individual basis to help us to become stronger so that when we become the grandpa and grandma, we can share names with them. A lot of those names have boy in them or little girl, Hokshilapi or Winchinchalapi, okay? And if you think about it, when we go to the spiritual energy in the sky, what our white relatives call heaven, when we go there, we become a grandfather and a grandmother. And so when they look back at Mother Earth, that's what we are, a boy or a girl. Okay, so a lot of these times, and then they come to that understanding. Well, how come I'm a man and yet you call me a Buffalo Boy? Well, that's because that's why usually, or a little Buffalo girl or whatever the case may be. But that's the reasoning behind that. And so that awareness that is there, it helps people understand they can show us respect without becoming us. We're not trying to make anybody us. We're not trying to convince anybody to be an Indian, but we'd like for them to afford us a little bit of cultural responsiveness by just at least having an inkling of understanding of this diversity and this uniqueness that is represented by the way some of us choose to live for the sake of enhancing and enriching the growth of our children. All children, not just Indian children, but all children. Oh man, I'm preaching here, boys. Give me a hallelujah. Hey,
Holy smokers, huh? All I see is waiting for that cane to reach out the neck and
jerk you off the stage.
Just sitting with this guy makes me feel diminished.
one time I had a quick question from my dad. I said out there, I said, what do they mean by hell? You know, he said, they said we're going to hell, you know.
Yeah.
This little bitty guy. He said, don't worry about it, Jake. He said, we're not going there. He said, we're going to Happy Hunting Ground. He said, we spent our hell on earth, so we're going to Happy Hunting Ground. He said,
we gotta be going there because we're already here.
We spent our hell on earth.
You know,
but anyway,
we tease so much sometimes, you know, amongst people that don't understand, and it really has had a negative effect. Amongst us, we tease, and then somebody hears it and they think it's the truth, and they say, "Oh man," but we don't want to explain it because, man, if you believe that, then you're more naive than I thought you were. But they do believe it, eh? And then they just like those little voodoo huts you guys go in, those inipis, they don't understand that word. You go in there to renew your breath or renew your life. You're making it better. When you come in there and you want to breathe better in a good way, in a spiritual way, they don't understand that meaning of those words. And that's the thing about us. We tease so much that they believe we believe we live like that, Chun.
Yeah, there's a lot of education yet to be done. So now our season here down here is basketball. Everybody's interested in basketball, so now it's all
Up here
we're all
too.
getting hyped up. Yeah. So we're the class B is gonna be held in Bismarck, so that's nice. Drive up to every game and home.
Geez, they come and sing me. They give me $1,500 money. Mazaska Ota. They gave that to
Gee.
me so that the team that their team would win. So I said, okay. Shit. Couldn't do it. They lost.
Can you do
Oh,
that?
they
I can't-
almost got a smudge before they went in there. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that,
There was a lot of experiences that I've been through that sometimes you just can't help it. Shake your head and say, you never know what's gonna happen, you know. We were in a sweat lodge one time in here. Our instructor or the intercessor, he said, gentlemen, we have a visitor. You know, when you're young like that, you know,
yeah.
oh, wow, man, that guy's got some power, you know.
Yeah.
After they opened the door, and he had a toad in his hand, and I said, well, yeah,
Some of your grandpas. Somebody got some good medicine right there.
you have to bite your tongue to keep from laughing because you don't want to show disrespect. So it's at your
We
head
have
down.
a visitor. You must have crawled on him.
That was crazy times, man.
But you see, you know,
Little
there's
kids.
that ineptness, that awareness that evolves into that cultural responsiveness. That's the point I'm trying to make. And in that understanding, people need to kind of open their minds to, if they have a wowi chala or wowi chada, if they have that faith in what their higher power is, be it God or whatever, then they should stand behind that and believe in that and come in and try to understand how we do that as well. That diversity, that respect, that we don't ask for respect, but if you want to offer it, we'll be more than happy to welcome it. But up to this point, we've been called a lot of different names, and you know, people ask me about that, and I said, well, you know, one of the things we need to really think about is our history. Go back to not to your great grandpa or your great grandma, but your great great grandpa and grandma. How do you think they believed? And if you believe our culture is our value system is of the devil, then they were of the devil, so you are a part of that devil. But just for rationale, just so they can apply some sense of logic to their thinking, and help them to understand that when you come over here, you know, one of the bad things that and I think you mentioned it too, Chia, is that we never ask for money for these things. We don't ask for, we don't put a price on these things because, again, my dad told me they don't belong to you, they belong to everybody. So if they come and ask you, you share them and you respect the fact that they're honoring a ceremony that you carry. And that's how we do that, because they're respecting you. And that's that cultural responsiveness. And we have ways of dealing with these things. Like when those visitors show up, it's not going to be a toad all the time. But to help them understand, there's a time that we are very serious, and then there's a time that, yeah, we are a little jovial, maybe to the extreme, but because we understand the importance of what can help us, what can assure us, and to help us get over this fear that is generated from this natural law. And we shouldn't fear it. We should incorporate it into our lives to help us understand the importance of our own existence, looking inwardly and being able to be all that you can be, eh? Trying to join the army or what? But again, looking inwardly and being all that you can be, or you're supposed to be, with the understanding is we're trying to recognize our purpose and our dedication as we walk the Mother Earth in a good way, so that we can help out when we can, and not become part of the problem, but be that solution, a part of that solution that Dakota, Nakota, Lakota are defined as, eh? And see, that's the sad thing that's why we try to, in our ceremonies, my relatives, is we try to remain apolitical and apersonal. We don't ask for money. We don't try to benefit ourselves by getting prestige or acknowledgements. We're just we're all common people. And when somebody comes to ask you for help, hey, if I can help you this much, I can't do it all, but I know a guy that can do these and do this. I know another guy could help us. And so we get together. And as a family, a Tioshpai, we come together and help out. And that's all we're trying to convey, help people understand. We follow a protocol. We don't follow a regulatory authority. We don't have rules and regulations, but we understand the importance of critical thinking. We understand that the Creator, whatever that higher power is, has given us our own mind to help us include ourselves into that circle. None of them in that Changleshka, nobody is alienated. Nobody is kicked out. You all have a place in there. It's up to you as an individual, as you view yourself from the inside out. What is coming from your heart? What is it that we want you to see as the center? And based on that, we afford you the right of your own integrity as you see the center, and then you participate in what you see for the sake of that clarity of what the center is, but in a truthful way. Eh? Does that make sense to you guys? Can you relate to that, brothers?
I can relate to that. Particular events, the things we discuss, it triggers memories to me, like experiences. And Grandpa Henry, he changed his name from Fast Horse to Swift Horse. Harry. He used to come visit me anyway. He was telling me about the owl dance, how that came about, one of the reasons for it and all that. So they used to often ask him to pray at the council meetings. And my other cousin was diabetic, very bad diabetic, but he was on the council. So he was sitting by Harry. Like they say, our people are eyes closed, but they're listening, Just thinking about that while I was sitting with my eyes closed, sitting like this. So they're listening. But he was diabetic, but he was sleeping. So that is still my account here. They didn't have no microphones, in the chambers them days, They speak loud. So they asked him, Grandpa Harry, to say invocation.
Yeah.
He took off his hat and everybody stood up. I said, here my cousin woke up. Oh, taco.
Taco ya chivo.
That made everybody laugh.
You finally woke him up.
Oh, toja.
What's wrong? So I think that's about the end of our hour, but I just want to thank
holy smokers,
my little brother Waylon Badger for coming and helping us out. He was there visiting, and I think you met him before, Chia. I think you met years ago. Yeah. Tehata, a long time ago.
1990.
90-ish or something like that. He always tries to sing like you, but I tell him, no, you're not even close.
Don't make the grades.
But
I've met so many people, but that name is really interesting. I like that name. Sage. So you say Ocha? Is that what you said?
Chocha.
Okay, Kocha. Okay.
Yeah. Badger Claw.
Kocha.
Yeah.
See,
You got that in Sundance Lodge.
Yeah, Kocha to us in there is like something that's twisted, like a fender gets smashed in.
Yeah.
Kocha, and it makes that sound.
And how do you say badger?
Kocha.
Same thing. Yeah.
But he's got Kocha in there.
Oh.
Yeah, so anyway. I like.
But anyway, Toshkawa, you got anything to add to that? All that stuff we shared, and hopefully it had an impact on whomever or whatever.
That was beautiful.
I don't know what.
But I do have one question.
I don't know what to. Okay.
Dexy Earl. Wagik sabye. Wagik sabye hedako kaho.
Wakik sabi is to be alert of what you're getting into.
Mm.
You know, wakik sabi, you know.
How would you describe
You have to be aware of your surroundings.
How would you describe to be sober?
That's it.
Uh-huh.
You don't want any influences going into your body.
So could I
You
say
know,
like,
'cause you put it,
could I say something like wagik sab michie?
yeah,
Wagik
yeah,
sab.
but you got to remember that balance, because that could be construed in the other world as grandiose behavior.
Oh,
So sometimes it's difficult to say,
Arrogance.
"Oh, I've been sober 40 years now. How you doing?" You know.
Arrogance, like,
No.
kind of, yeah. Wagik
Yeah, so
sapye, yeah.
I heard that word the other day, so I wrote it down.
Yeah, it's in a song. I made a song for it like that too. It's a sobriety song.
Yeah, that's where I heard it. Yeah, that's where.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of which, we gotta get that drum. You know, we gotta sing on it.
Heck.
You
As soon as
need
those buds come out.
Yeah. It won't be long. Well, I was gonna tell you that. All right.
Uh-huh.
The theme was in class, the kids, I said, you think of animals, symbols that have associated with the coming of spring, wetu, which means when everything is wet, water and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so they started drawing. And they brought me their drawings. I said, well, what's this? I don't recognize this. That's on TV. It's one of those cartoon things like SpongeBob and something like that. Well, what does that have to do with spring? He lives in the water there, Mr. Bullet.
SpongeBob.
Yeah. These kids sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, all right. But then now I translate it. Whatever they draw, I translate, write it up into them, and then give them the translation: trees, ox, birds, all that stuff. You know, it's just like the word for hawk. Huh? Chetan is supposed to be chetan, yeah. Yeah, a friend of mine got that all wrong. First time I've ever been to a sweat in here. One of those, well, I shoot you guys in the sweat, said, I'd like to pray to the spirit of Satan out.
Satan.
I'm out of here. Said, that guy's talking to the devil. He said, I'm out of here.
So the Chetan.
Satan
Satan.
out.
Hookah, hey, Toshka,
So we
wana.
have to work on.
Nu
All
stop
right. Wanna.
Ah.
All right. So stay in touch, guys.
Oh, hey,
I got that jacket. Got that red jacket. Ugly watch. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, hi, ya, hey, hey, hi, ya, hey, hi.